The first thing I noticed after the crash wasn't the fire, the screaming, or the twisted steel clawing at the earth. It was the silence inside meth kind that feels like a graveyard after the choir has gone home. And then his voice cut through it, raw and trembling, saying my name like it mattered whether I breathed or not. We weren't supposed to be here, stranded in the wilderness with death as our only neighbor. We weren't supposed to share the same jagged breaths, the same aching cold. But fate doesn't ask permission before it strips you bare. His name was Ryan. I'd seen him before the accident, just another passenger on the flight, another stranger drifting in and out of my periphery. He had that all-American smile, the kind that could have belonged to the captain of a high school football team, or the boy next door who never learned how cruel the world could be. I didn't pay attention to him then, but in the hours after the crash, when the smell of smoke and blood refused to leave my lungs, he became the only anchor holding me back from disappearing into madness. I remember the way he grabbed my wrist as I tried to stand. My legs were shaking, my chest was bleeding from where the seatbelt had cut into me, and my mind screamed at me to run from the wreckage, though there was nowhere to run. He pulled me down beside him and whispered, "Don't move, you'll make it worse." His hand was warm, steady, and in that second, I hated him for being calm when I was falling apart. "Why are you even talking to me?" I snapped, my voice sharp, desperate. "You don't even know me." He just looked at me, dirt streaking across his face, and said, "I don't have to know you to care if you make it through this." Something inside me cracked then. Hours blurred into each other after that. Survivors scattered, some crying, some silent, some already too far gone to notice the world at all. The night pressed down heavy, cruel. I couldn't close my eyes. Every time I tried, the sound of the engines failing ripped through me again, the sudden drop of the plane, the screaming that cut off too quickly. Sleep wasn't rest, Anna Marie, it was a trapdoor back into hell. Ryan noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. When the others dozed in exhaustion, when the fires burned down to embers, he kept his eyes on me like he was afraid I might shatter if left alone. "You can't keep this up," he murmured one night, his voice low, close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath against my temple. "You have to rest." "I can't," I said. My throat felt like gravel, my chest raw. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the sky, back in the fire. He didn't argue. He didn't tell me to toughen up or to stop being weak. Instead, he shifted closer, his shoulder brushing mine, his presence steady and quiet like a lighthouse cutting through a storm. "Then don't sleep," he whispered. "Not until you're ready. I'll keep watch." And I believed him. That was the night something unspoken began between us. Something fragile, tender, made of shared silences and the weight of everything we'd lost. I didn't know what it meant yet, or if it could survive outside this nightmare, but I knew it was real. We talked in fragments over the next few days, about where we were from, what we'd left behind. He was from Denver, studying architecture, the kind of dreamer who saw possibility in broken foundations. I told him pieces of my life too, though not all of it. Not the secret parts. Not the truth about why I'd been flying alone, running from a home that never really felt like mine. But he didn't push. He never pushed. He just listened, his eyes soft, like maybe he already understood more than I was willing to say. And yet, the world around us kept reminding me of its cruelty. Food was scarce, water even more so. The other survivors looked to anyone who seemed strong, and somehow that became Ryan. They followed his voice, his steady hands. And two followed him too, though for reasons I couldn't admit even to myself. It wasn't until the fourth night that I realized how much he'd given me. I was trembling, sleep-deprived, skin pale under the weak moonlight. My body was there, but my mind was still trapped in the falling sky. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break. And then he touched my hand. Just that. A simple touch, his fingers brushing mine, grounding me. "You're here," he said softly. "Not there. Not anymore." And for the first time since the crash, I believed it. But believing didn't erase the fear. It didn't erase the gnawing guilt, the endless questions about why we survived when others didn't. The nightmares clung to me like shadows, and Ryan's presence became the only thing that could push them back. I started to crave it. His voice, his steady breathing beside me, the quiet way he stayed awake just to make sure I didn't lose myself to the dark. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something just as dangerous. Because what happens when the one person holding you together is also the one who could break you the most? Ryan must have sensed it too. The night after we scavenged what little food we could find. He looked at me with something raw in his eyes, something almost scared. "I know you're hurting," he said, his voice shaking. "But I need you to know you're not alone in this. Not ever." And I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But my heart had been a graveyard long before the crash, and I didn't know if I could let him in without burying him there too. Yet when he pulled me into his arms, when he let me rest my forehead against his chest, I didn't pull away. For the first time in days, my body went still. My eyes burned with unshed tears, and against all reason, against the chaos of the world, I felt a fragile peace. And in that moment, I knew I was already his, whether I could admit it or not. The first time I laughed after the crash, it startled both of us. It was weeks later, after the search teams finally reached us. My voice cracked, rough with disuse, but the sound came anyway, light, alive. Ryan looked at me like I had just handed him the sun. I never imagined I'd survive long enough to laugh again. Not after the sleepless nights, not after the weight of ghosts pressing down on my chest. But Ryan never let me fall, not once. He stood beside me, even when I hated myself, even when I swore I wasn't worth saving. Back in the city, the noise felt foreign. Sirens, chatter, the hum of electricity, it all seemed too loud, too fast. My body was safe, but my mind still lived in the wreckage. I'd wake up gasping in the middle of the night, the phantom roar of the plane in my ears. And every time, Ryan was there, pulling me close, whispering, "You're here. With me. You're safe." People called us lucky. Survivors. But luck didn't explain the way my hands still trembled, or why I couldn't bear to sleep alone. Luck didn't explain why I felt broken beyond repair. Ryan never used that word broken. He said I was alive and that was enough. But I saw the truth in his eyes. He was carrying both of us, and sooner or later, I'd have to learn to carry myself. One night, months later, I stood on his apartment balcony, the city lights burning below like restless stars. My chest ached with the weight of everything unspoken. He joined me, barefoot, his hair mussed from sleep. "Ryan," I whispered, voice low, raw. "What if I never stop hearing it? The crash, the screaming. What if it never leaves me?" He didn't hesitate. He just stepped closer, resting his forehead against mine. "Then we live with it," he said. "Together. We don't have to erase the pain to build something out of it." Something in me broke open then, not in the way it had when the plane fell from the sky, but in a gentler, necessary way. For the first time, I let myself believe I could deserve love, even in the ruin of who I was. We kissed under the hum of the city, soft and trembling, but real. It wasn't a cure. It wasn't magic. But it was enough. Over time, I began to heal, not by forgetting, but by remembering differently. The crash stopped being only about terror and loss. It became about survival, about the boy who refused to let me drown in silence. It became about Ryan's steady hand on mine, his laugh breaking through the darkness, his heart teaching mine how to beat again. Some days were harder than others. Nightmares still visited, fear still lingered. But I wasn't alone in it. He was always there, reminding me that even the worst scars can hold beauty if you let someone trace them gently enough. One morning, long after the world had moved on from headlines about the crash, I woke to sunlight streaming through the window. Ryan was asleep beside me, his arms slung over my waist, his breath warm against my neck. I watched him for a long time, memorizing the lines of his face, the peace he carried even in sleep. And then I realized something simple, something profound. For so long, I thought survival was about fighting to breathe, about keeping the nightmares at bay. But real survival, the kind that heals, was about finding a reason to keep waking up. Ryan was my reason. When he stirred, Eyes blinking open, I whispered it before I could stop myself. I love you. His lips curved into the softest smile, sleepy and beautiful. I know, he murmured, pulling me closer. I've been waiting for you to say it. The world didn't suddenly become easier. Life didn't suddenly stop hurting. But it felt different now, lighter, because I wasn't walking through it alone. The crash had taken so much from me. But in the wreckage, it gave me something I never expected: someone who saw me at my weakest, at my most broken, and chose to stay. And for the first time since the silence of that night, I knew what it meant to truly rest. Because with Ryan beside me, I wasn't afraid to close my eyes anymore. I slept, and I dreamed of us whole, together, alive. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.